All throughout the United States, in these next few weeks, many schools are going to open up and begin the next school year. So it's so important to get some tips for students and for parents of how to make the school year more positive and more successful. So the first point I want to go and focus on is getting sleep. I know it might be tough, but kids right now in the summer, they've been staying up until 1 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock, even these younger kids maybe until 11 o'clock, and waking up maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And if you don't slowly transition them back to that 7 o'clock wake up time or 6:30 so they could get to school by 8 o'clock or 8:30, it's going to get very difficult. So make sure you try to make a routine right now to slowly get them ready to be able to wake up on time so they could be positive and be awake when they go to school and not get cranky or stressful or frustrated because they feel that they didn't have a lack of sleep. And especially older students, middle school and high school parents, I know sometimes you might not think about them, but those are the ones that are sometimes only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep because why? They're doing their homework, or they might be online. And if they themselves don't get that 7 to 8 hours that they need, and especially American Association of Pediatrics, they recommend at least 8 hours. So it's so important, even for the middle school, high school kids, to get enough sleep for their school year so they could be successful, because many of them have other after school activities afterwards and homework. So you want to make sure that they can start off with that energy, but you want them to keep it up and not slowly sizzle down. So take care and use that first tip. Tip number 2 for a successful school year, just like we talked about going to sleep and waking up on time and getting that 8 to 10 hours of sleep, the other thing is when they're waking up to eat something, right? It's something important to just not just have, and please, a lot of these kids wake up with these energy drinks and that's what they're drinking in the morning, which is not good, or like a Mountain Dew or some like Red Bull. No, you want to make sure they have some form of like some healthy snack or at least a breakfast. And it's so important to maybe as parents when we set that up and have that for them so it's easy, even if it's something of a go, where they could pick up and go and eat a banana or some apples or some grapes or fruits, or even if it's something cereal, but even picking up cereal that hasn't so much increase in sugar, so where they have the sugar high and then in 2-3 hours or they're getting like a sugar crash. So making sure that you also prepare them with some healthy breakfast for them would be great, or some snacks that they could eat maybe after a few hours, which they could have in their bags, would be a great solution and idea for a successful school year. Number 3, so you got them, have some good sleep, they ate some good breakfast. You want to make sure that backpack, they're not at the last minute trying to put all their assignments in. Try to have, especially the lower grade students, preschool, pre-K, all the way up to maybe elementary, you want to give them an opportunity before they go to sleep and say, hey, did you put all your assignments in your books in your backpack? Do you have all your supplies where they are? Because what happens is sometimes in the morning, if they didn't wake up on time or they're trying to rush into eating, they forget something and everyone gets frustrated, like, I can't believe you forgot it. So it's so important to have this idea, the routine, that before they go to sleep, they have at least majority of their stuff taken care of, right? So from their backpack to their clothes or what they want to wear, so especially as they get into middle school, high school, where they all start worrying about what they need to wear. So if you have a school that has uniforms, you should be happy, right? Because that lessens a lot of the headache in the morning. So now we talked about number 1, getting enough sleep. Number 2, making sure they eat right and have enough good nutrition, no food before they go to school. Number 3, making sure they're prepared and they get their backpack ready the night before, and especially if they're individuals who wake up late or they're always kind of not really focused in the morning, that plays a big part. Number 4, you want to make sure that also when they get ready, that have proper hygiene and taking care of themselves, grooming themselves. 8, if you want the kids to also be excited about school, if they're not combing their hair, they're not, being sloppy in the way they're dressed, it does affect, right? Sometimes, no doubt about it, everyone's going to have their own style and fashion. That's fine. That's something that you and your child are going to have that discussion. But making sure at least that they're brushing their teeth, washing their face, taking a shower, especially if you know in the morning that helps them wake up, then make sure they do that. If they're a person that takes a shower at nighttime, that's fine. But making sure that they are changing their undergarments and taking care of the socks, because also when they're around other individuals and they're not groomed or they're smelling, it's going to take an effect. So as they get into oldest grades, middle school, you want them to know about, making sure deodorants, cologne, combing their hairs and taking care and changing their socks every day and their undergarments. So important to have those conversations, but having those starts when they're young so they can have these habits when they're young, so by the time they get into middle school, high school, and when they are sweating a lot more, they get used to these specific habits. Especially if your kids are playing sports teams afterwards, when they come home, make sure they take a shower. Number 5, you want to set some goals for the school year, right? You want to set some goals and say, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and improve on mathematics this year. I know we're all going to say we're all going to get straight A's. Now, you also have to be realistic of your own child. And if there's a class, if supposed to be taking an AP class or honors class, or maybe there's that one subject they're just not good at, but you're going to say, look, hey, we're going to make sure you increase, you're going to do better this year. Maybe on your standardized test scores, you're going to increase 10, 15%, right? If they're scored at 40, 50%, you can't be like, they're going to score at 99 in 1 year. That's not really going to be possible. Hey, but I want you to increase it 15, 20%. Hey, I want you to go from a B to an A or C to a B. Also, not just academically, but you want to see socially, emotionally. Hey, let's try to go ahead and make some extra friends. Make sure you're involved in some of the after-school activities and clubs. You want your kid to become a better individual. So that means afterwards, if they're in the lower grades, maybe they're going to go in a park district club afterwards, or they're going to play in a team, a park district team. Whatever those things are that you want to make sure that this year they'll say, what are some of the goals that you are going to put on yourself so you could become a better individual, and then check in after first quarter, check in after half the year. This way they know if there needs to be some accommodations or modify something, you are working together and communicating with them. That will go a long way. Number 6, as we had talked about, number 5 was making sure to set the right goals. Number 6 is making sure there's a routine in the house. So when they come back home, what can they do? Hey, if you're especially in the lower grades where there's early childhood, elementary, it's so important. When you come back home, all right, everyone, you're going to go play for 1 hour. Then you're going to come back. Are you going to do 15 minutes of homework? Then you're going to go and play again. Whatever that routine is, you also want to put a routine for the video games, the TVs. You're going to need to put screen time. Even my own kids at our own, for myself, from preschool to 8th grade, we just had 1 hour a day screen time. And the weekend they had a few more hours, right? So at least they know what their expectation is, but they were able to do other games, right? Having board games. So making sure you have that balance of schoolwork, fun activity, family time. Also, what time we're going to eat as a family, or if you are a family of spirituality is very important, faith is very important. Maybe you have a certain time for even having some prayers together. So whatever those things are, which are important to you as a family, from the academics, but to make socially, emotionally, spiritually, make sure you also keep those things down with a structure, and that helps them also learn how to structure their day and having a balance, so they don't get overwhelmed thinking about school all the time. Number 7, as number 6, we have talked about like structure at home. Number 7, you want to make sure there's a certain time also in place for homework. And especially in the lower grades, it's so important to have like an area, maybe in the dining table, the living room, or the kitchen, where they do their homework. I don't like the rooms, because sometimes they're going to get distracted with other factors, and you also want to see what they're doing. And a lot of times, even if it's good for them to say, hey, look, you're going to do 15 minutes of homework, and put a timer so they know 15 minutes are up, and not like you say 15 minutes, but you make me sit there for 45 minutes. So you want to have an opportunity and a time, and that means, like as you had talked about your structure, and say it's 5 to 6 is homework time, let's try to crank it out. Sometimes there might be some extra homework, and sometimes they're going to finish earlier. So they're going to be like, wow, as long as and you have them structured, even if they might be frustrated, if you be consistent and you stick to the plan, I guarantee you they're going to go ahead and make that into a routine, and they will adapt, right? You are in control, parents, remember that. So making sure even if for homework there's a certain time and routine, and you get that done, and then that way they can put stuff back in their bags, and that way that will help them out and be ready for the next school day would be perfect. Number 8, what is so important is to build a relationship with the school. You want to make sure that you have a relationship with the teachers, administrations, finding out what's going on in the school, reading the emails. Sometimes we don't read the emails and we're like, oh my God, I didn't know. But if you keep up with their emails or their teacher web, where their teacher might have their own website or the school website to see what's going on, that's going to be very important, because some things that might be school-wide programs, which might be great for a family event to go to. Sometimes there might be something going on that could affect your own child. So you want to be involved, and that means by keeping an idea what the assignments are. Most teachers now at schools, they can put it on their teacher web, so you know what the assignment is, or they have a school management program or a school grading program. Keeping up after a few weeks to see if they're missing up the assignments, like, well, why didn't the teacher tell me? Especially when you get into middle school, high school. Teachers are going to have 150 kids. They're not going to remember every time your child didn't make the assignments. You are the parent. You only have 3 kids. You want to make sure 5 kids max, or maybe 8. Whatever how many kids you have, but that's your priority to make sure that, hey, what's going on with the assignments? I know you had an exam. How did you do? Keeping those things in mind, and especially parent-teacher conference, that you want to go there ask the right questions, see what's there, what are the things they could do to get in, to make them a better student, what they could do to improve, any guide resources they have, tutoring times they have, making sure those specific things are asked, and hopefully they have a successful school year. Number 9, what is so important is a balance to after school activities, right? So, a lot of times that doesn't mean, oh man, I'm just gonna keep them so busy that way I have nothing else to do. No, you wanna make sure that the kids have to also learn how to soothe themselves. So that means they can just sit at home, and so yes, they might have after school sports teams, which is important, very important for boys and for girls. Our after school club, or they're part of some other initiatives. So you want to make sure that there's some academia growth going on, so if there's a spiritual growth that's going on, but even the social, emotional aspect, that they have individuals they could go, or someone could come over their house so they have time to play and enjoy. But you want to keep a balance where it's not so much structure, they don't know how to function or soothe themselves or figure things out without you already planning everything for them. So keep that in mind, and they have a great school year. Number 10, you want to make sure that you talk to your kids about, the assessments and grades. So when they're doing well, you want to keep on praising them. You want to encourage them. And if they're struggling, you want to listen first without first getting mad and figure out a plan of action how to make them better students, right? Because if you could do that, it'll go a long way. And you want to make sure that the kids feel comfortable enough to tell you, like, I am struggling, then saying, well, if they find out, I'm gonna get in trouble, so I'm gonna hide it and deal with the consequences later. So you want to be an advocate. You also want to make sure that you're listening and finding out how they're doing, evaluations, and if you need to help and support them, if that means you need to help them with their schoolwork, or you need to help them organize better, or get structure, or need to get them patience, or let's deal with maybe if they're going through some anxiety, or whatever it is, being there, listening to them, help them will go a long way. Number 11, what is so important to have is your child to have the growth mindset, to encourage them to have a positive outlook on anything that happens, right? They're going to have their challenges, but when you could give them this growth mindset, it goes a long way, right? Even research shows that even at a young age, if you show a child a glass like with water half full, the way they perceive that water, is it half empty or half full, gives them a better idea. Even educators and psychologists, the individuals that look at the glass half full look at life in a much better way with a positive lens than individuals who are always like half empty, right? Because you're looking at everything in a negative way. And that affects others and the people around you, even the way when they're going through things. So like in the fixed mindset, when someone would say, hey, I give up, right? Like, I just give up, I can't do it. Growth mindset would be, I'll use a different strategy, right? Hey, it didn't go the right way. Let me think of another way to make sure I could get this figured out. Maybe I need to look at it for a different way, different view, different method, or maybe just need to step back and kind of come back in a few minutes because maybe I'm getting frustrated. That kind of go ahead and changes it. Another thing would be, I made a mistake, right? But and so I just made a mistake. A growth mindset would be, hey, mistakes happen, but let me learn from it. So not just like, well, I just made a mistake, sorry. To say, okay, great, you made a mistake, but what are you going to do? How are you going to make it better? Having them kind of think about things and kind of rethink, even those phrases play a big part. I'm not good at this, right? I just can't do this. I'm not good at this, right? I'm horrible. I'm not the fastest runner, whatever those comments are. And so, well, you know what? Let's look at, well, I'm not good at this. Well, what about, what am I missing? How can I make this better? What is it that I'm struggling with? I'll tell this to a lot of kids when some kids are like, I hate math, I'm just not good at math. I always look at it and say, no, you are good at math. You might not be good at a specific chapter, right? A specific section, right? So you're like, hey, multiplications, you're good with additions, you're great with subtractions. It's decimals that's struggling. When you could pinpoint, then kids just generalizing, because sometimes they just have that no-hope, like, oh, I'm just horrible. But if you could kind of go ahead and show them that looking at it in different ways, that, hey, in a specific part of that subject that you struggle, but you've been doing well before, and you just need to work on it or build on it, work extra hard here, right? Then they realize, as long as they've really maximized their potential, and that's what you want to realize. Hey, did you really maximize your potential and got the right resources you need so you could be successful? So kind of keep that in mind.